Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Martha Simmons with another session of Preaching and Preachers on Facebook Live via Restream. Good afternoon. Come on in and let me know that you are out there for a broadcast that I know is going to help so many people. I know you're just recovering from the Super Bowl but as you're lounging about, Monday is a day that a lot of people, preachers, take off anyway. Come on in. Let me know that you are out there. And when you come in, tag someone, type in the name of another person, and they can jump on right now, or this will be up on my page on Facebook for at least 2 weeks. Come on in. I see folk coming in slowly but surely. Come on in. It is a sunny day here in Atlanta, and I hope that the weather is not bad wherever you are. Good morning to my people on the West Coast. Folk who I know get up early to watch this broadcast, shouting out the folk in the Midwest, certainly the people in the East Coast and those in the dirty South. Come on in, come on in. This is a subject today that the Black church and every church for that matter desperately need. We desperately need to talk about the issue of curriculums in schools. Come on in, especially in when I say school, I mean church schools. Um, we just need this information. So come on in and join me. And like I said, when you come in, tag another person and let them know that they can jump on right now, or it'll be up on my page for 2 weeks. We're going to give people about 30 more seconds to come on in on what I'm calling Super Bowl recovery Monday. The game did not go as some people thought it would, so it was interesting, and folk are still debating the halftime show. We love to debate stuff.
Yes, we do.
We
Yes,
do.
we
We
do.
love to debate stuff. And I was just tickled by how many of my colleagues and acquaintances were saying, I didn't understand one word that he said.
Right, right.
And I told one person, I actually posted that I think if they ask for closed captioning,
Yeah,
they will get the words. Come on in,
yes,
people.
yes,
Come on
yes.
in and join me for another session of preaching and preachers on a great Monday. We're going to go ahead and get started because I want to give my guest as much time as possible. As always, let's pray for those who are sick. Let's pray for those who are experiencing a season of bereavement. And especially this week, I want us to pray for all educators. We know what has happened in public education and what 47 is threatening to do in terms of grants for college students.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's just pray for our education system uh, in this country. It's in trouble. Let's just pray. By way of announcements, next Monday, please join me next Monday, the 17th, as I discuss LGBTQIA plus issues with Karis Braxton, Don Abram, and Dr. Brandon Crowley. You do not want to miss that. Come on in, come on in. All right, all right. I'm glad to see. Okay, there we go. Folk are really coming on in. All right, all right, all right, all right. Let me just get to it today with my wonderful guest. We want to talk about curriculums for churches, especially for our kids.
Mhm.
Uh, Sunday schools, church schools, and etc. Took a hit I guess about 30 years ago, they started to decline. And it has shown
Mm,
in what we are presenting to our children in terms of curriculum to
mhm.
help them mature as Christians. The Reverend Dr. Robert S. Harvey is my guest, and I am so delighted. He can't, let's see, I'm trying to think. I think the last time he was on, he talked about how it is that you understand, do assessments and things like that. But that broadcast was viewed by more than 12,000 people because he's got the goods. He is an educator, social impact strategist, and school systems leader. He is the managing director of Alma, a social impact firm committed to racial, economic, and education justice through teaching and learning, leadership, and grant making. He is also, before he did that, he was most recently the president and co CEO of Food Corps, a national justice organization at the intersection of education, food, and health systems committed to all our nation's public school students. He also holds visiting professorships in the practice of public leadership with a dual appointment in education. Prior to Food Corps, he served as superintendent of East Harlem Scholars Academies, a network of public charter schools, and he was the chief academic officer of ETHAP in New York City. Before that, he was chief operating officer of Simmons College in Kentucky, a historically black college in Louisville, and he was an elementary school leader in Memphis. Committing his life to learning, he holds a doctorate in public leadership from Memphis Theological Seminary, a master's of theological studies from Harvard University, and a Bachelor of Arts from Bryant University. He's also completed postdoc work in education, leadership, and the Superintendent's Institute at Harvard Graduate School of Education. He is an author, and if you're interested in understanding education, justice, Black folk, and how we teach, especially teach children, you need these two books on your shelf. The first book is Abolitionist Leadership in Schools, Undoing Systemic Injustice Through Communally Consciousness Education. Just look for Abolitionist Leadership in Schools, published by Rutledge. And the second book, and this is my favorite of the two, Teaching as Protest, Emancipating Classrooms Through Racial Consciousness, also published by Rutledge. And it frames so much philosophical and practical pedagogy that centers freeing teaching and learning spaces for students and teachers. This is the man who knows how to raise test scores for children. And we all know the test scores for reading in the country just went down again.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
went down again.
Yeah.
And so this is a voice we need at a time like this. So welcome,
Thanks,
Dr.
Doc.
Robert Harvey.
Thank you, Reverend Mother. It is so good to be with you as usual. I always say these one hits a year we get fill my entire year of inboxes from folks because of these conversations once a year. So I'm excited for it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for the work that you have done and continue to do.
Thank you.
Let's just get right to it. If
it.
you are on, type in the name of another person you know needs to view this broadcast. They can jump on right now, or they can view it for the over the next 2 weeks? Let's just get started, Dr. Harvey.
Let's do it.
Let's, I guess, kind of start at a high level.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a curriculum, a lesson plan, and a scriptural lesson? What's
Yeah.
the difference?
It's a good question. I'm gonna start backwards, Doc. So a scriptural lesson is literally what it says. It is taking a text or taking a collection of texts from sacred scripture and ultimately back it into some spiritual note, some spiritual formation that you are trying to achieve through the lens of that selected text. A
Mm-hmm.
lesson plan is similarly, however, it is a stackable and contextual set of objectives trying to be met over the course of a series of encounters with children or encounters with students, driving toward formation, either mathematically, analytically, psychologically, reading, etc. And then a curriculum, which is where I get my joy, is the map of that human's development over time through
Mm-hmm.
lessons.
All
So
right.
the curriculum is the map. The lessons are some of the stops along the map, and a scriptural lesson is a micro stop using sacred texts along that map to wherever you're trying to get that human to go.
Okay. All right. Now, so we've got a baseline. So, with all of that being understood, what do our churches, what do African American churches need for children right now? They're failing in the
Yeah,
public schools,
yeah,
and pastors are struggling to pull this material together to help children in the church. What do we need?
yep. Doc, let me start here. Let me start by saying, I think one of the things we have seen over the course of the last, I think you're right, 30, maybe longer years in church
Mhm.
spaces, is that we stopped asking a critical question about what are we aiming to do in children's spaces. Meaning,
Mhm.
if you go back to the peak of civil rights moment, the peak of the introduction of lessons, Black churches did not detach the lesson that was happening in Sunday school or at VBS from the formation of that child as a whole human.
Mhm. All right.
As white evangelicalism has continued to grow louder and its snap has gotten stronger on Black communities,
Mhm.
we made a very, I'm gonna call it intentional, but we made an intentional decision to
Yeah.
stop caring about the whole human and to ultimately go to a place that Black people have actually never been, which was exclusively trying to proselytize the soul.
Whoa. Whoa.
Black people have never been there. We have never,
Mhm.
in Black religious history, it has never been solely about the soul.
That's right.
And yet, if you look at the Black megachurch movement, if you look at the Black CCM movement, if you look at
Mhm.
the Black contemporary voices that now have the mixed congregations, for whatever that's worth, it is all about the soul and the
Yep.
soul. But there was a time when our curricula was about the human, the spirit, and the soul. And so
Yep. That's right.
I would contend that the first thing we have to do if we're going to be honest about shaping children's curriculums in churches is we got to be honest about whether or not we're doing one of three things. Are we shaping a whole human? Because
Mm.
that will inform how
Mhm.
we think about what we do with them. Are we
Yes.
curating the spirit, which means
Mm.
we are intentionally making a decision to ignore parts of their literacy development, parts of their mathematic development, parts of their critical thought, because we really care about who they are ethically and morally? Or are we proselytizing the soul? Are we ultimately trying to create people who say yes, Lord, and we see them again next week? Because if that decision is the starting point of what you do with curriculum.
Oh my God.
So that's first. And that's a big
Mhm.
decision because
That's big.
like I know, it requires a level of radical honesty.
That's right.
And where I have seen churches with thriving children's ministries and thriving curriculums, if they've
Mhm.
gotten honest about what they're trying to do with kids.
That's right. Mhm.
And I don't
Yeah.
have I don't have a stake in the fight of whichever route you decide, though the educator part of me hopes you decide part one, which is
Mhm.
you shape the whole human. But
Sure.
that's step one. born out of that, and I should probably pause and see if you have another question. There are 6 things churches got to think about.
Okay. Yeah. Don't go too fast. Don't go
Right,
too fast.
right,
I
right.
know you got all of it. Don't go too fast. Let me get some other questions in. So, you know, and I posted about some of this because pastors are
Yeah,
sincerely struggling
yeah,
to find curriculums, especially for those that like that 5 through 15 age group.
yeah,
You
for
know,
sure, for
you
sure.
got the babies, and then you got, they're the barely teenagers, and they're struggling to find good curriculums.
Yeah,
And I saw some people posting about here's what we're using, and I was stunned
yeah,
by some of the answers because
yeah,
I know these curriculums.
yeah,
I've done work for some of these, and it's so bad.
yeah,
It's so
yeah,
bad. But we don't know. We
yeah,
don't know because number one, just as you said, we didn't answer the critical question.
yeah,
What are you trying to do for these kids? So, you know, and maybe this is what you were just about to get to. When you look at curriculums,
yeah,
what will good curriculums for children always include, and what must they always include in an African American church?
yeah. Before, as a preface to answer that, Doc, let me say, because you threw a little piece of bait out there, and because I am who I am, I got to bite the bait. Almost every curriculum right now that is both for church and kids is
Yeah.
anti-black, anti-woman.
Say it. Say it.
And so I too struggle when I hear people lauding what they're putting in front of children,
Ooh.
because just because it is fun, or just because it is well designed, or
Mm-hmm.
just because it has very beautifully curated digital content,
Yeah.
does not mean it is shaping the Black soul,
Yeah.
or it is affirming the fullness of God's love for all humans. And so, I'm with you. A lot of it's trash,
It
and
is trash.
and it,
Jesus.
and it does not advance this whole human concept. So here's what does: 6 things, and I'll walk them as slow as you want me to. Every high quality curricula has
Mm-hmm.
a defined approach. It says it from the beginning, whether or not it is learner centered, subject centered, or problem centered, and those are different
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a defined approach. It tells you that we approach our lessons through the lens of the single learner. We approach our lessons through the lens of a topic we are trying to unpack with a very particular worldview. Or we approach our lens through a problem, which means we don't have a worldview or a particular stance. We are using problems to invite inquiry for children to ultimately decide what they believe. That's step one. And every high quality curriculum, if it
Yeah.
does not tell you whether or not it's approaching it through a learner, a subject, or a problem, is already worthless.
It's bad. It's
Bad.
bad.
It's bad because if you look at the curriculums right now in the market, and there are 3 that people seem to like laud the most. Two,
Yes.
two of them white, one of them black and older.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so if you look at them, none of those 3 tell you, and I have pulled a gazillion lessons hoping to stumble upon it, but none of the 3 tell you what is the pedagogical approach we are attempting to use in this thing, so that you can know up front,
Right.
if you even have the right, and you'll catch this, Doc, even if you have the right teachers for that lesson, because a learner approach, a subject approach, or a problem approach require different teaching styles.
That's right.
So
That's correct.
no curriculum is universal to a well-meaning volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Curriculums must be responsive to a skill set that
Right.
knows how to implement that approach to learning.
Exactly.
That's one.
Exactly.
I mean, we could stop there, but that's a big
That's
piece.
the big one. That's the big one.
The second one, and this is where you and I are bosom buddies. High quality curricula calls out explicitly high quality vocab.
Yes. Yes.
You never invest money in a curriculum where page 1 or page 2 does not tell you a bank of words that this lesson are about to use, why they're using them, how you use them, how you define them, and how you apply them for the sake of this lesson.
Yep.
High quality vocab. Listen, Paulo Freire, who has shaped much of my pedagogy, said this in 1981. He was talking to some migrant workers in Brazil. And he said, words are not merely an act of decoding letters. He said, words are the process of decoding the world in which you live, and therefore your reality and your vocab are dynamically in relationship.
All the time.
Listen, your vocab and your reality are in relationship, meaning if you don't have access to high quality words, you will never be able to paint a picture of the reality of what you're living in.
That's right.
And I have told pastors through consulting so many times, the simplest step that your Sunday school team, your Christian ed team, your spiritual formation team, your small group team, whoever, your executive pastor, the simplest step is for somebody to annotate your sermon, the lesson, the book, the theme, and just publish a list of words and definitions. It is the easiest access point for children when you can just create a word to say, you might hear me you might hear me use the word pneumatology. Here's my working definition. Here's the part of speech. Here is how I plan to use it as an entry point into the text. When you're working with 5 to 15, you might say, you hear us use the word mercy a lot. Let me give you a an academic definition of the word mercy so that you can see how it applies, right? Because here's what often happens that we don't realize, and this is what translates to current literacy results in America. The mercy of God is keeping me. Well, maybe. But mercy at its rawest state has no spiritual value. The word mercy inherently is just literally a judge decided to lower the sentence.
Yeah.
You can apply it in any context. You could say, listen, my child wrote on the wall. I decided to give him mercy. We moved on. There's nothing shoutable about mercy unto itself. If you don't pause to just do that work, right? A child is somewhere internalizing you screaming mercy with no working definition of why is the mercy of God keeping me? What does that even mean? And so we have an opportunity to utilize high quality vocab as an entry point into making sure that we have universal accessibility to learning. I'll pause there for a second, but that's criteria number 2, high quality words at all times.
At all times. I mean, I remember, because I started out as a Sunday school teacher for the kids.
Okay, love that.
And you had to have your word list.
Yes.
You had to have your word list.
Yeah.
And we were sticking them up on the board with the Velcro.
Yes.
But you had to have your word list.
You had to have it. And listen, you said it. So listen, if for our viewers who don't know, on January 29th this year, the National Education Report Card was produced, which demonstrates whether or not there was growth in literacy and in math primarily. For what has happened for the almost 20 years in America, literacy scores have dropped again. What is the way church schools, Sunday schools can utilize and support that, right? Doc, every standard, Common Core otherwise, is accessible in public domain. We could do a quick Google search of high quality second grade vocabulary, high quality third grade vocabulary.
Yeah.
What would it look like for churches to say, we plan to utilize these words that will be familiar to your child at school in our upcoming lesson? We're going to distribute these high quality words at the door when you leave the sanctuary so that you can know and work on and practice these words with your children. Even 1 additional hour of week of word work, 1 hour of word work. And that could be
for the whole week.
For the whole week.
For the whole week. Just an hour for the whole week.
And I'm talking 15 minutes at church.
Exactly.
20 minutes on the ride, one word.
Yeah.
Just that 1 hour of word work. Doc, you ready? You can see anywhere from 6 to 9 point literacy gains in one academic year if you just do one additional hour of word work.
Did y'all hear that?
One.
Oh my God.
If I got to sit through 90 minutes of a service, the least you could do is bury a word or two in there that's high quality.
My goodness.
In 90 minutes with children in your care, you focus on a couple of words. You are subconsciously increasing their access to Mondays a year.
Yeah.
You can make a dramatic impact on a child's ability to access not just the text, but to access the world around them with 1 hour word work. All right. So we have our defined approach, learner. This is where teachers used to hate, but I swear by it. Every high quality lesson, every single one, even the one you threw together on the ride, has a learning outcome.
Absolutely.
And there is a sentence stem that we have been using forever in schools, high quality schools, because it still works. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to.
That's right.
That's it. And at the end of that, you got to have a verb. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to understand, boom, 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 boom. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to make meaning of, boom, boom, boom. Any curricula, any lesson that does not have a learning outcome, even if it's spiritual, even if it's churchy, is already missing the mark. Already, right? So you say, all right, we're gonna take Isaac. Here it is, the story of Isaac. I was watching an Instagram video about today. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to make meaning of examples of faith. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to understand what it means to take risk. Just by naming up front what the goal of the lesson is aiming to accomplish, here's the first thing it does, which all of us can use the benefit from. It keeps us on track. Exactly. It prevents us from the wandering wilderness of whatever's on my mind that day. And it centers me to, by the end of this lesson, I got to make sure students can do this one thing, make sense of risk. Yes. By the end of this lesson, I got to make sure students can do one thing. They can critically understand the difference between God as decider or me as decider. Like whatever it is, you got to drill down to the one thing that's going to anchor every single point of that lesson. So learning outcome. Then we go on to the next thing. And you talked about this from our last conversation. Every high quality curriculum has ongoing assessment. Yes. If you can't measure it, it does not matter. And that goes. And here's the thing. And here's what's interesting. Yeah. I posted, how do you assess it? Yeah. I think I posted 4 or 5 teasers about today's broadcast. I got not one answer. About assessment. You got to assess it. And that told me so much. Yes. That told me so, because people don't understand how to do assessment. No. And they won't ask anybody. Right. You're right, Doc. So look, but here's how beautiful it is if you consult with an educator. Here it is. Right? We go through a lesson. The lesson was 40 minutes with kids. We have 7 minutes left. Parents about to come get them from the door. We pause that lesson. We say, all right, you got 2 exit options today. Exit options are either going to be threshold at the door, or it's going to be raise the hand vote. If I'm feeling gracious, I'll give you a third. We'll do popsicle sticks. Everybody's popsicle stick is in the air. Yeah. I have a bank of questions. I know I got 13 students, I got 13 questions. When you answer the right question, I take your popsicle stick, you now are free to leave because I've assessed whether or not you've taken the lesson into heart. Popsicle's not your style? Fine. Meet me at threshold. At the threshold to that door, before you can walk over it to go to your parent, you need to tell me one thing about the lesson you did not know before you came in. Boom, you're done. All right. We're going to do a clap, clap, pop. At the end of that pop, somebody better give me a fact that you got from this lesson? And if nobody got the fact, we go back to pop, pop, pop. What does that look like, Rob? Father Abraham had many sons. Great, free to go. Isaac was the one that, for whatever reason, the Lord sent up there to that mountain. Great. What kind of animal was in the bush? A ram. Good, you're free to go. That's assessment.
Yes. Yes.
You see how quick that is, mother, and how fun that is? Just those kinds of method of ongoing assessments are ways for children to do, and this is what Pedro Negro says, we must internalize what we hear, or we must internalize what we hear if we're going to apply what we hear. That kind of assessment is very easy to come up with, right? Unfortunately, we are in church context. The closest thing we get to an informal assessment is say yes.
Oh my God!
Right? Say yes is not an assessment. It is an affirmation. It is a communal activity, but it is not an assessment. Right?
Yes.
And so we got to have ongoing assessment. And I tell educators when I do training, like there are over 70 informal, more than that, informal, fun ways to decide and determine whether or not kids have had access to a very particular text. All right, number 5. This is the one that pricks my heart. There is differentiation for diverse learners. If 20 kids show up in that room, all 20 of those children do not enter into that lesson the same way. That's correct. Let me be clear, right? I'm not asking for Sunday school teachers and church school teachers and small group leaders to be experts in special education or IEPs or 504 plans. None of that. I am, however, asking Sunday school teachers and spiritual formation leaders to think carefully about multiple entry points into a lesson so that everybody is affirmed.
That's right.
Right? Andra Tisha Fitzgerald, an amazing scholar, a dear sister of mine, wrote a fabulous book called Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning. Again, Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning. And in that text, which can be applied to churches, to schools, she talks about the single greatest thing we can do for children is we can turn the lights on. And the way that you turn the lights on for kids is by giving them multiple entry points into the lesson. What does that look like, Robert Harvey? It looks like if I'm going to talk about the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire, fine. For some children, the text will work. Reading the story at their age level will be totally fine for them to internalize. For other children, they will need a visual anchor in order to make sense of this idea of 3 humans in a fire that didn't burn them.
Right.
The words themselves can feel sketch, but a picture might help me make sense of it. For other children, I may not have access to the picture. I may not have access to reading the text, but maybe I need to do some turn and talk with my partner to say, I want you to tell your partner how you understand the story of the boys in the fire and and let's see if we can make sense of it that way. For other students, I might need to put my hand on something. So maybe I keep a set of Legos or action figures in a little crate, and to say, I want you to go grab 3 action figures, and I'm going to ask you to make a pit. I'm going to make you to put those 3 action figures inside of that pit. Can you imagine if I lit that pit up with fire? What do you think would happen?
My goodness.
Right. Multiple entry points for a person to be able to access the same exact story. And if we were honest, I mean, let's be very clear, Doc, because if we were honest, if 500 adults are sitting in the sanctuary listening to the same sermon, only about 30% of us are accessing that sermon.
Oh my goodness. I'm not even gonna go there.
Right. So
I'm not even going to go there and debate that number with you. But I will say we absolutely know that kids are at different levels.
Yes.
Of learning for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
For whatever reason. So you cannot just go in with one learning style and help all the kids. You cannot.
Cannot do it.
It's just not possible. So at least consider what will you ask yourself, what will get everybody? Our phrase used to be get all the kids on board.
Yes, sure.
What will get all of your kids on board?
That's right.
And it's never going to be. And I want everyone listening to really hear me. It is never going to be just reading a lesson.
That's right.
Never going to work for everybody.
That's right. Never.
Never, ever, ever, ever going to work. It doesn't even work for adults.
That's right. Does not work.
Okay?
Does not work.
It does not. It
Nope.
does not work for all adults.
Nope.
So certainly you need various methods
Yeah.
for reaching children. Go ahead, Dr. Harvey.
Last thing, last one, Doc. Here it is. Point number 6. Last point about high quality curriculum. Last thing it has integrated and illuminating connections to the world. Integrated, illuminating connections. Give you an example. Jesus feeding the 5,000. I'm gonna anchor back to your first question you asked me: curriculum lesson, scripture lesson. Scripture lesson approach, which is what most of us hear on a Sunday morning with children. Yeah. Jesus fed these 5,000. Let me say, catch it, right? Plus women and children. We kind of lump that tag on the end,
right?
And he fed them with this little bit of food, and we say that's a miracle. Look what Jesus was able to do. Look what God was able to do. Fine. High quality curricular lesson says, what if Jesus's feeding of the 5,000 kids was, yes, a miracle, but what if it was also a necessary demonstration of food equity?
All right now.
What if Jesus actually didn't have to do that? What if they actually had enough food that he didn't have to work that miracle?
All right now.
What would it look like? Right? Taking a lesson and adding an integrated and illuminating connection to the world is a function of high quality curriculum. Because let's be clear. I mean, this is where I get my blood boils with scripture lessons in isolation. Child leaves that classroom, walks out of that hallway, gets in the car, goes home. And when they get into their real world space, all they were left with, and I recognize that I'm saying all as if it is less than, it is not, but all they were left with was Jesus worked a miracle.
Yes.
And Jesus worked a miracle with some fish and some bread, which on average, that child has never even had to eat themselves.
Yes.
The average child hasn't had a fish sandwich. Yes. So here we are trying to make sense of a miracle without an entry point that is accessible to children. But what would it look like to say, could you imagine Jesus feeding the 5,000 with 2 cheeseburgers and 5 orders of fries? Just imagine. Do you think that Jesus could have fed all 5,000 then with 2 cheeseburgers and 5 orders of fries? And I'm talking even large fries. And make the burgers doubles. You see what I mean? Like, at minimum, at least make a connection so that the child can say, like, okay, I see what we're doing right now. And then saying, but if that region had enough.
Okay, now.
Jesus should not have had to take a little boy's lunch in order to do that kind of work.
All right now. All right.
So I struggle when we do faith lessons, scripture lessons, and we leave these real world connections off of them. Here we go. I'm going to go back to Isaac, Doc. I was thinking about this morning. Next time I preach this text, I'm going to preach this way, I think. I am. Abraham took that boy up on that mountain and was listening to God, which I respect, obviously. But what illuminated for me is that parents are always having to make sacrifices in the name of faith. And sometimes the sacrificial exchange that a parent has to make is time with their own child.
All right now.
That Abraham ultimately was willing to give up his child to do a thing. And how many parents know what it means to come right to the edge of saying, I'm willing to give it all. I'm going to have to give it all up in order to do X. Those are the kinds of connections we got to find our ways processing in order to get children in, right? Yeah. And so these real world connections to the text are absolutely fundamental. Most children, 82% of Black children sitting in church schools, and this will be my last example because I think this is one that is apropos for pastors who might be already in their sermon planning, or their church planning. 82% of Black children are being raised right now by a single Black mother in a home,
Right.
roughly
Right.
82%.
Mhm.
Imagine taking the story of Mary
Hmm.
and going into your church school, your spiritual formation lesson, your small group with kids, and saying, how many of you all only have a mom at home?
Yeah,
The hands go up.
that's right.
And how many of them say, wow, do you know that for a short window, there was a world where Jesus was only going to have a mom at home?
Mm.
And imagine what it does to the spirit to say, like, hold on, I got the same family configuration that Jesus had for a period. You do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do. And what
Yeah.
does it look like to do that with the child's imagination, to say, that's part of the power of this text. Part of the power of this text is, yes, about the virgin birth, but part of the power of this text is about the power of what a single young Black mother was willing to do in the name of ensuring that her child was going to be held down.
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
other power of this text. And
Yes.
that
Yeah.
she was willing to go for it, brother, no brother, because she had to hold her child down.
Yes. But we get stuck on is we want kids to know that this was a virgin birth.
Shoot, fine.
Exactly.
Fine.
We get what we
Yes.
can't, but
Yes.
what we can't do
Yeah.
is move any further than that
Yeah.
in helping a kid to be formed as
Right.
a person,
As a person.
meaning they understand or connected to
Yeah.
their what is around them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
what they're living through. It's because the truth of the matter is, if you tell them, especially the 7 and 8 year olds, about a virgin birth, etc., they don't bit more know what you're talking about than a man.
Dog, don't know.
Don't know.
And to your point, and when you get to the 12 and 15-year-olds, you're going to have a lot of theological work to do to convince them that she was a virgin.
Exactly.
Let's be clear.
A lot of theological work.
And so you take right. You take a bet.
Anyway, I digress. I digress.
No, listen. You're right about it.
Let me get to, this is a big one.
Yeah.
For a lot of curriculums. And I told you all this was going to be rich. If you are on, type in the name of another person and they can view this. It's going to be up on my page for 2 weeks. Dr. Harvey, kids and many adults, and it's that place, time and place in the way we do things now. They're tied to technology.
Sure.
They're just tied to technology.
Absolutely.
So if we look at Christian education and materials, what role now today does technology play in Christian education materials that are used by kids? What's the role of technology?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything. And here's the thing, Don. I love this question. But as a product of my generation, I was of the text. Even if I have a digital book, there's likely a hardcover somewhere around this house.
Yeah.
And the educator part of me, the part of me that works with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, is the person who also recognizes that I would do far better if I can administer this content with a core digital component, even if it includes gaming, using my phone as a form of ongoing assessment, a video or an access point, because these shiny cover books we still put out money to get are not translating into the internalization that we think they are on the back end. And in large part, one of the biggest curriculum providers that I know Black churches love and continue to go use, even if you look at the book, it doesn't look like they've updated the pictures of the people on the cover since 1975.
They haven't.
And so imagine being a 15-year-old child who has access to every form of technology. You are a digital native. You only know what it means to you. And then somebody hands you this Sunday school book with a picture of a little girl with a nappy bun on top talking about following Jesus all the way. Imagine the foolishness in your body.
Yeah.
Of you trying to access theological content when this here does not represent the visual, like the visualization of the word I live in. So what technology gives us the permission to do, it gives us the permission to put in front of children an identifiable and accessible entry point that is much more akin to their real lives, right?
Right.
So if I can find a way to say, you know what, today in my teenage group, differentiated learning, let me do a quick informal scan to see who has phones, or let me say, how many of you all happen to have phones with you? Great. Everybody who has a phone, I want you to find a partner. Cool. I want everybody to log on to YouTube. I'd already scanned some content. We're going to go to this link here on YouTube. This YouTube video is a conversation between Cardi B and so about faith. That's my entry point into the text. I'll get to following Jesus all the way, but I'm going to start here with this conversation about how Cardi B took some risk on the rap game, how she took some risk from living in New York, how she took some risk on herself, and then I'm going to back into following Jesus all the way.
Mm-hmm.
So you use technology, going back to Andre Teacher Fitzgerald, as multiple entry points of engagement in order for children's brain to be able to start making sense of what is happening. Or what does it look like to say, you know what, for our starting point, this would be a great lesson next week. For our starting point, we're going to watch just 4 minutes of Kendrick Lamar's performance.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to watch it on the screen in the church, or we're going to have you put up on our phones. I'm going to have an iPad. I'm going to have the deacons roll the TV in, whatever it is. We're going to watch the performance, and I want everybody to pull out one part of that performance that you think is interesting and makes a connection between faith and boom, whatever it is, America, democracy, God, da-da-da. That kind of use of technology are the ways we have to be thinking, because if formal school environments are also getting the point that we need to pivot away from printed materials to a certain degree in order to ensure internalization, churches cannot be the only place keeping printed books alive and expecting to see results when school environments are recognizing that children are not accessing that content the way they need to. And so we cannot be afraid of technology. We cannot be afraid of AI. We cannot be afraid of using digital resourcing and social media. We cannot be afraid of phones. We have to create community norms around the use of them, but we can't be afraid of any of this stuff.
And we cannot just say that every quarter some publisher sends us a box of books.
Yes, Lord.
And that's that's how we're going to teach, and that's it.
Yes.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Particularly when we open that box of books. So when I was school superintendent, and when I was head of school in Memphis, and almost every really amazing and transformative school leader I know, even when you get a lesson plan, a scripted lesson plan in a school environment, Doc, the first thing, there's 2 things you have to do. I'm going to force you, 3. I'm going to force you to read it.
Yeah.
Can we just pause there for a word? Yeah, you got to read it. 2, after you read it, you need to annotate it. You need to mark it up.
That's right.
You like identify, okay, here's a high quality vocab word. Here's a word that might make kids stumble. Let me put a question here. Let me break this chunk up. It's a little too long. Let me insert technology here. Ooh, let me make this something that they do at home or ask their caregiver in the car. I annotate it. Then I internalize it. And then I teach it.
Yeah.
So to your point, our current method, books get shipped. A well-meaning trustee or Sunday school superintendent opens them up.
Yeah.
Come pick up your books for your kids. You go pick up your books for your kids. And the first time that well-meaning adult reads that book is probably when they open it up with the children.
Yeah. Or the day before, maybe.
Or the day before, maybe, right? And so, but what they have not done, they've not internalized it, they've not annotated it, they've not taken it into their body, they've not made the connections critical for it. And so in isolation, it is not supporting children in becoming whole humans or even becoming spiritually curated, because the work that's required to get that lesson ready to be in front of a child is extensive. And I will say there are a handful of colleagues of mine who have done something brilliant. They have consulted people like me and others, educators, to say, like, can you just put your eyes on our lesson map? Can
That's
you just even
right.
talk to my leadership team and just
Right.
like ask us the hard question that we don't even know to ask right now
Well,
about
I
what's
mean, and it just makes sense. And this is what, it wears me out some days that it just does.
yeah,
Because it's not that we can't get the information. I mean,
right,
pastors can't know everything
right,
all the time.
right,
Nobody does.
right.
But you can get the information. I know that the average pastor does not have the capacity to write their own curriculum.
No,
Okay?
no,
That
no.
I mean, I'm not crazy.
Yeah,
I
no.
know that they do not. I absolutely understand that.
Yeah,
Remember, what is it? That's 47, 50% of pastors, they've never even gone to seminary.
right,
Okay.
right.
So I know they can't write their own curriculums, but why can't they reach out to people
Yeah,
and say, what would you take a look at this and tell us
yeah,
what we have?
yeah,
And do we need something totally different? How can we use this to serve our kids, who most of whom are a year or two behind in
yeah,
terms of reading, math, etc.? How can I help my teachers
yep,
do more than want to read to the kids from a book?
yep.
Just ask somebody. I mean, it's 2025.
Yes, yes,
Just ask the question. uh, you know, Pastors often say, I wish I had more kids in my church.
yeah, I'm sure.
And, the leaders, we want more kids, we want more teenagers. And then you see what they teach them.
Right,
And you
right.
say to yourself, you really couldn't
No,
want more.
no, no,
You really couldn't.
no.
If this is all that you are giving them in terms of faith formation,
Yep,
in terms of their cultural formation,
right,
and you wonder why they are not interested in church school.
right.
But just ask somebody anyway. Let me get to. I've got, I could be
That's
here
real.
with you for 2 or 3 hours. Let me
So,
let
Doc,
me
so Doc, 30 seconds, I promise. 30 seconds on that one
uh,
thing. It's critical. In 2024, I did this 4 times. Do you know, Doc, pastors reached out to me. 2 were in person, 2 were virtual. And you know what I did? I took a 3 to 4 hour chunk
yeah.
on Zoom with
Mm-hmm.
with approximately 12 Sunday school or Christian formation teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We did? We mapped their whole year out for 2025.
Yeah.
We mapped it out. I had everybody bring their favorite Sunday school lesson. I had them teach 4 minutes of the lesson. I marked up virtually, like, there was no clear entry point. You never
Yeah.
told me what words matter the most to me. You never gave me a learning objective statement.
Yeah.
You never told me by the end of this who I would be as a human. You never told me how to make the connection between this and the real world, blah, blah, blah. And do you know, I heard from one about 2 weeks ago that said, Doc, they are still using that same blueprint of
That's right.
annotation to
Mm-hmm.
look at every lesson now. And all it was a pastor saying, this, I know this is not my expertise. I know this
Mm-hmm.
is not what I'm doing, but we got families were joining at a rapid rate, and they
Yeah.
needed to figure out how to keep those kids contained and how to keep them engaged. And that's all it took. A handful of hours to plan an entire year of high quality lessons that went in front of
Yeah.
children.
Yeah. I mean, it's not rocket
It's
science.
not.
I'm sorry. It
It's
is
not.
not rocket science.
It's
And there
not.
are people who have studied this,
That's right.
and they can help your
That's right.
children understand, as the parents would say, the Bible.
The Bible.
Okay. The Bible. I want
Yeah.
my child to know the Bible and help your
That's real.
children to be formed
That's real. That's real.
as Christians, Black Christians who
Yeah.
understand and are part of the culture around them. So, you just said, you got a group of folk together. So to get to consulting someone like you, what should these pastors, especially, and I'm talking about pastors in churches with 30 to 50 people, they got 7 kids.
Yeah.
Then we got churches where they got 15 kids.
Yeah.
what should these pastors start to ask themselves?
Yep.
Give me some
Past-
questions.
yeah, pastors should ask themselves a handful of questions. Pastors should ask themselves the big question, the macro question should be, do the future of these children, do their futures matter for me to care about this?
Mm,
You got to be
mm,
honest. You got to be honest about that. But
whoa,
do their futures matter?
mm,
Because if their futures matter, and if your answer is a heart-informed yes, then you cannot afford not to care about the way they are being formed through Sunday school or spiritual formation. And I know we said 30-50, but given church these days, churches in that like 300 or less mark all need to ask this question.
yes.
Right? Do the children's futures matter? Question number 2. Do we have an aligned point of view on what we care about most? Goes back to question 1. Whole human, curating
Mhm.
spirit, or proselytizing the soul?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I bring my volunteers together, or my leadership team together, or if it's just me and the Sunday school superintendent, are we aligned that what we care about most is human, spirit, soul, or some combination of the 3? Third question I got to ask myself is, am I willing to trust experts who are
Mm,
more proximate to these problems?
yeah.
That is a big question,
Yeah.
because unfortunately, there are far too many of my pastoral colleagues who are not willing to trust experts who are proximate to this work, because I have been in conversation with more than my share of pastors who hold a kind of fear or anxiety that they're going to have to give up some part of their theological construction in
Mm,
order to do this work well.
yeah. Yeah.
And I have shared with so many of them, you and I will likely never believe the same thing.
Right.
That is fine.
That's right.
But what you and I do believe, I hope, is that children deserve to read.
Thank you.
What I hope we do believe is that children deserve to have access to the world around them. And that I am not, no academic or pedagogical or curricular expert is going to ask you to give up your theology, but there is a way to package your theology so that
Right.
children are growing at the same time. So if your theology is that God created the world in 7 days, and you fundamentally believe that there were 6 real days of work, 6 kind of Roman days of work, and a 7th Roman day of rest, fine, works for me. If that's your theology. What I'm going to
Right.
help you do is package that story in a way where it is accessible to a child who will not make sense of God or anybody being able to do all of this in 6 gregarian days.
Right. Right.
So my
Right.
responsibility is not to remove your theological framework, but to give you a capsule to sit it in that ensures that children are learning. So those are the 3 questions to me. Do we care enough about our children's future for this to be a strategic priority of our church? So in the same way that we do worship mapping, and the same way that we do our holiday mapping, and we map all of our guest preachers, have we mapped our children's growth? Does it care that much to us?
No, no. Does it, and we haven't.
We haven't.
That's the fundamental
Yeah.
problem. We don't do the assessment. We don't
Mm-mm.
map the growth.
Mm-mm.
We
Mm-mm.
don't understand that their comprehension skills are lessening
Lessening, literally every day.
every day.
Every day.
Okay, because we're not doing any assessment. You know, you and I both know about, the notion of the hidden curriculum.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me, say a little bit about the hidden curriculum and why that matters.
Yeah. So the hidden curriculum is what is being taught and transferred to children beneath the radar, or
Mm,
beneath the surface of the thing that we are actually teaching. It is why I
yeah.
started by saying that almost every curriculum out there in the market right now for children in church is anti-Black and anti-woman, because
Yes.
the hidden curriculum at work is
Mhm.
when you're reinforcing concepts of equity or inequity, justice or injustice, human personality or human formation. by saying a thing a certain way or not saying a thing or a certain way or using a certain phrase as a way to
Yep.
get your point across, right? So when you, here it is, when you are constantly only using the he pronoun for God in your church school with 5 through
Yep.
15-year-olds,
Yep.
the hidden curriculum at work is a child now starting to conceptualize that God is anatomically male.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's the hidden curriculum at work.
Yeah.
When you start talking about, when you use language like head of household
Yeah.
and we respect the man of God, the hidden curriculum at work is that
Yeah.
women have no power, which ultimately begins to shape a child to have an assumption of the role of gender around women or men. And let's not talk about all the genders in between. Let's not even get there.
We ain't gonna get
Right,
there.
right. So that's some of the hidden curriculum at work. When you hear people and you teaching a child a song and you say something like, it ain't Buddha, it ain't Krishna,
Yeah.
it ain't Muhammad, it's Jesus
Yeah.
for me, right? The hidden
Yeah.
curriculum at work is a kind of xenophobic, anti-religious,
Yeah.
anti-cultural inclusion where you are saying all of those Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Which,
we
right?
don't. But
All that hidden curriculum at work.
and here's what we are not getting, because we're looking in this era, especially at white evangelical Christianity,
Yes.
and we don't understand how the hidden part of curriculums and sermons,
Yeah.
okay, have impacted the thinking of people, so
Yeah.
that whiteness can be
Yep.
rightness,
Yep.
because
Yep.
you took a picture, first of all, and you imaged Jesus a certain way,
Sure.
and then you gave these hidden messages
Yes.
to say to people, this is what God really loves,
Yes.
this is who God loves,
Yes.
this
Yes.
is who God favors,
Right.
this is who God has put in charge. And we keep acting as if these hidden curriculums don't matter.
That's real, Doc. So, Doc, you lifted up one, right? So I'm gonna call out one of them just because it's most proximate, and I know people know it. Like, take the orange curriculum, right, which is one that people really laud
Yeah,
around
yeah,
the
yeah,
coast. It is a primarily white curriculum that I know a
yeah.
lot of Black churches, namely Black churches that are growing access. When
Mhm.
you look at Orange's curriculum, Doc, the cover of almost all of their elementary and middle school content is
Mhm.
typically a white man, a white woman who we assume
Yeah,
are married, and typically, you
yeah.
ready? And then an
Yeah.
Asian child.
That, well, it's an Asian, and I've seen a few Hispanic looking.
Yes, right?
Yeah,
So, what's the hidden curriculum? Hidden curriculum is well-meaning white people adopted a child that was not their own.
that's right.
Hidden curriculum, white people are so good that they will take on to themselves children that they could
Mhm.
not have or did not
Yeah.
have. Right?
Mhm.
What is that? The curriculum now, I got 20 Black kids in a room whose initial cover of our topic today is a white family embodying it all. It means
Mhm.
they are the model of what it means
Yeah,
to be like Jesus.
yeah. And we don't even, and here's, I mean, and this just, makes my skin crawl. We won't even take the time, as we used to have to do when I was teaching. We won't even color the characters.
Listen,
We used to have to take crayons,
listen. Trying
because,
to spend time.
that National Baptist stuff, we'd have to take
Yeah,
crayons,
yeah.
because we were like, no, 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 no. We will not have these characters looking pink,
Right,
looking, we color. People don't even do that.
right, right,
They just
right.
leave it as is.
Right, right. Yeah, that stuff matters. And the last one I'll say, because I am seeing this all across social media, and it is breaking my heart. All of these black evangelical spaces who are
Mhm.
now on panels talking about, because this is hidden curriculum at work. I'm a
Yep.
Christian. I'm a Christian first.
Yep.
My first commitment is to my faith and then my race.
Yep.
That's hidden. You are making a very bold hidden claim
That's right.
that as long as we confess Jesus similarly, that we
Hmm.
don't have to do the hard work of our racial injustice.
That's
And
right.
we have children and families sitting in sanctuaries where children are being fed this kind of racial reconciliation language in a very subversive kind of way of, as long as you're Christian and you love the Lord, your race is secondary. Your
That's right.
gender is tertiary. Your economic status is not even in the conversation if you just love Jesus.
And you don't have to worry about any systems
No,
help people stay poor.
no.
What you
Just
got
love,
to worry about is just teach Jesus.
teach Jesus. Love God.
Just
Love,
teach
love
Jesus.
God. Learn these Lyceum acoustic songs, and you will be fine in the end.
And just preach the
Yeah,
gospel, and that's enough.
that's enough.
Meanwhile, half the people in your community are can barely eat.
Can barely eat,
Okay,
don't have access to SNAP, have failing literacy rates,
and
uninsured, underinsured,
and the kids are sitting there like, what,
right?
what,
Right.
and they're tuning out.
Yeah.
That's what they're really doing
Yeah.
because it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, you show me these pictures
Yep.
of these white people and they're doing all right. Is my mama ever gonna do all right?
Listen. Listen.
Okay.
Listen.
Because what we are missing is, and don't see in the hidden curriculum, is not only are we changing the way we want people to comprehend stuff,
Yeah.
what we're doing to children also is crushing them.
Yes. Yes. Bettina Love, Doc, you said it. Bettina Love,
Ooh,
a phenomenal pedagogue, says something. She says that most of what happens in classrooms of children is spirit murder.
thank you.
And
I lived it.
woo,
I lived it in the Chicago public schools.
yeah, it's spirit murder.
And we're doing the same thing in churches. We are
Absolutely.
killing these kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we don't have to. And the beauty of this conversation
Thank
is that
you.
we
Thank
don't
you.
have to. We
And
can
we can no longer afford to act like
no,
we don't know.
no, we
We
cannot.
can't keep saying we don't know.
We know
We
what to
can't
do. We
keep
don't know what to
saying
do.
I just put my books came and I'm going forward, or
Yeah.
I only got 7 kids.
Yeah.
It all their souls, their lives, their
Yes.
futures, they all matter.
Yes.
They
Yes.
all matter, and we got to do more.
Yes.
And I've told several young clergy, look, instead of a revival this year, get your Christian education
Yeah.
department together.
Yes.
Do that work for your
Yes.
adults and your kids. Put your money there.
Yes. Doc,
It's,
yes. You hit it. You hit it. I would love my dream. I would love a world, and you just said it. If you and you do this every year. You talk about the number of leadership conferences and revivals that are
Jesus.
going to happen all across the country.
Oh,
Every church can have a leadership conference. Every church can have a revival. All things. But what would it look like to take the same time we would commit to a leadership conference for adults
mhm.
and say we're going to take the next 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, 4 weekends, whatever, and it's
That's
all
right.
about the kids.
Oh my
It is
God.
about building systems and structures for our children to be well.
Yes.
You want to grow your church by children?
Hmm.
Publish in the social media world that you are about to have a child-only strategic focus for the year. Publish in the world that you're about to lift up the first children's curricula conference for Black church. Publish in the
Yes.
world that you're about to call together Sunday school teachers and small group leaders and formation leaders, and you're going to do a curriculum deep dive with one another, led by an education expert or whatever you do. That would blow you up.
And say 3 or 4 other churches in your city.
Yes,
They're
come
gonna all
on.
do it together.
Come on.
We're gonna
Yes.
do it together.
Yes.
So this expert who may be expensive costs nothing because 5 churches split the cost.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
And everybody got help because
Yeah.
children matter.
They do. They do.
They not on their souls matter.
Yeah.
Their lives matter. Their
Yes.
futures matter. They
Yes.
matter.
Yes.
You
That's
know,
right.
I tell people all the time, as we're looking at this time of trying to figure out strategizing what we're going to do next with
Yep.
this current president, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. Our foreparents, many of whom could not read and write,
Right.
okay,
Right.
could not read and write,
Right.
at least had enough common sense, mother with wisdom, whatever you want to call it, to say, whatever I can do
Yes.
in this fight for
Yes.
my children and my grandchildren,
Yes.
that's why I'm doing it. I may not get to see it. I may
Yep.
not get to use it. I may not get the benefit,
Yep.
but it's for the children.
Yes. For
And
the
we
kids.
seem to have lost
Yeah.
just that basic understanding of why we do church.
Yes.
It's the children.
Yes.
It's the children. Our time is up.
Yes.
We went over it because it got so good to me.
It's good.
And I'm telling you, this is necessary work.
It is.
Dr. Robert S. Harvey, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Doc.
For the work that you do and for sharing with my audience. I want to say thank you to everyone that tuned in. And for those who will watch the replay, thank you for hitting my Cash App.
Yeah.
I'm an independent scholar, so I appreciate it when you do that. And last but not least, and I always say this, share the video.
Yes.
His last video, like I said, it was 12 or 13,000 because people shared it.
Yes.
Because it was so phenomenal and so helpful. And I believe the same thing about this one. God bless you, Dr. Harvey, as you go forward doing the great work that you are doing. God bless each of you. I hope that your week is meaningful. Take care, everybody. And don't forget to join me next Monday for a discussion of LGBTQIA+ issues. God bless everyone.